Welcome to the Krypton Report. Today's episode will be solely focusing on It Went By So Fast. And I can't talk about the end of the greatest Superman show of all time without bringing in my brothers. Mr. James Superman Red Cole. What's up, James?
What's up, man? Yeah, it went by so fast. Like, and saying that about the fourth
Faster than a
season,
speeding bullet.
faster than a locomotive,
What's that voice
More
I hear?
more powerful than a locomotive.
That's Mr.
Yes, sir.
Bryan Danger, man-child of Steel Peters.
Woo! Have to correct the Superman guy.
Oh, you say go by? It went by so fast. I mean, season 4, we didn't have any breaks. We got 2 episodes, and then it was 1 a week. Boom, 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 and got it knocked out. Like, that was a great schedule for a great final season to a solid Superman show.
How great was that? Just not having all the breaks.
Yeah, the breaks killed it from the CW for years.
Because wasn't it like season? Was it season 2 where there was like it was like 2 episodes and then let's break for 3 weeks. 1 episode, let's break for 2. You know, like
It was something
or was
like
that
that.
season 3? I don't know.
Season 3 was a
those
little bit
further.
more because season 3 is a little bit shorter, but
Sure.
like season 1 and 2 were like that, where they had those longer breaks. At least lucky enough that season 3 wasn't as bad, and I say that quotes as bad, but still.
Well,
But
that one had to put off work and stuff because of the strike, didn't it?
Yeah.
Had to put off work of writing and of course shooting. That would push the shooting back for it too.
So let's we're gonna take a moment here and kind of look back. We're gonna talk about the episode, and that's our only focus on this tonight's recording, but we're gonna take a look back at a few things here. The first thing is, not only is this the series finale of Superman and Lois, it ends DC shows not only on the CW but on TV, period. And we have had consistent DC TV since 2001.
It started with Superman and ends with Superman. I mean, that's what it should be.
Yeah, I was going to say there was only that short break between the end of Smallville and the beginning of the Arrowverse.
It was only a little over a year.
Yeah,
because Arrow premiered in the fall of 2012, and the Flash was 2014. But I mean, think about all the other shows that we've had DC TV wise. Not only do we have all the Arrowverse shows, you had Gotham, Krypton, Constantine, and then what was it? Why is that? I'm drawing a blank. The one that sucked, super powered or whatever that everyone forgot existed. Powerless, yeah, Powerless, and we
the comedy, yeah.
And then
I have that. I own that.
Oh, good, sweet. I always wanted to finish it. And then we had Naomi,
the one with the insurance company, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
That could have been interesting. Like, and I think even Marvel was saying that they were going to do some type of damage control show.
Yeah,
like, wasn't that
it was fun. It was good.
It was good.
Is in it. It was really funny.
But then they added Van Wayne as a character, which made no sense. And then they it made it feel like it was more, Batman 66 than, being something that could be fun. But is there any other shows that I'm not thinking of that were those?
I mean, and then of course we had the DC Universe shows and then the Max show.
Yeah, but those, I don't count those because they're not on TV. Like this is standard broadcast television.
Oh, yeah, standard. Yeah, I don't know.
Because that just shows how things have moved to just being streaming.
Of course, I mean, I
Well,
missed it. Prey. There was
I had to get
No,
I had a cat in the room, so I had to go exit. But did you iZombie?
iZombie,
iZombie
yeah.
is technically a DC property. Then there was that like weird show for like 4 episodes or whatever that was like I am IBZ I didn't
DMZ.
have yeah, it didn't have
DMZ.
Rosario Dawson or something.
That's a Max show.
Yeah, that was on a streaming service.
Oh, my apologies. The Naomi show.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
probably mentioned
Naomi.
that. Lucifer could count because it was
Yeah.
on Fox for a little bit.
You're right. Lucifer does count.
So for 23 years, DC had a good run on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Sure did.
And
Saul Cannon, like, you know,
And now-
with Marvel, like they still haven't recognized Agents of Shield or anything. Like they even said that Coulson's a variant. Yeah, they haven't said anything.
no, that's because
There's
Agents
no
of
acknowledgement
Shield.
at all.
Agents of Shield exists in the multiverse. That's why they did the whole multiverse saga, was to get rid of having to make Agents of Shield continuity.
Yeah, that's why.
Same thing with Inhumans.
Yep.
Like, they had to-
exist.
No,
Yep.
just wipe 'em
Inhumans and
out.
Agents of Shield exist in their own timeline. You know, they're
Cloak and
gone.
Dagger, Legion, that type of stuff. But anyway,
Legion was wild.
But I mean, we are at a point where, you know, if we get DC TV now, it's supposed to be all interconnected or connected to a movie, and it's going to be on a streamer. You know, so this is an end of an era. Just like I said, that broadcast TV, and you know, there is something that's cool about the streaming series, but there is something about just being able to turn on a network television and find our characters. You know, it helps add to that broader appeal. And the saddest part with this show, what it is the best that DC has had on television, and it's like the show that they didn't really want, and it's their main character, but they have put nothing behind it. There is no merch for this show. There's barely any publicity. There's no big push for this show. You know, the DC chatter right now was not, like, from official DC, was not even really talking about this. And it's sad because I was telling Jania, like, we were talking the other day. I mean, you know, when Supergirl came out, like, there was some official DC merch you could get at the DC store. They gave her her own style of logo, so you get an official shirt. They had 2 different figures that were made for her, but there's been nothing produced for Superman and Lois.
was there anything ever produced for Smallville?
Yeah,
Like, I don't.
Oh yeah,
dude,
yeah,
I have.
there's plenty of merch for small.
I had a Smallville T-shirt.
Oh yeah, the jacket.
But I mean, like, when the series started, I had a T-shirt that just said Smallville High Gym. Like, it looked like a gym T-shirt from an actual school, but a Smallville. I have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 figures from the Justice League episode. I have the Clark Kent figure from the original pilot. I mean, they didn't have a whole lot.
All right, you win. Okay, all right.
But they had something. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But I mean, this is a series that, I mean, think about just this photo right here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 figures. Doomsday could be a Build-A-Figure, you know?
Yeah.
Just
That'd be
Tyler
awesome.
and all of his
Sign me up.
different costumes he wore alone could have his own figure line. He's had more costumes than any Superman actor.
I think they were just trying to get it. They were trying to get it right. Like, you know, the first suit had so much padding, and then his like abs kind of looked painted.
Mhm.
Like they didn't have it just right. I mean, you know me. I love, you know, that golden age Superman look. I mean, I would have been fine if he would just stuck with that suit, the whole dang thing. I mean, it kind of would look corny eventually, but like, I don't know. I just like that Fleischer suit with that S and stuff. But I think they were just trying to get it right, and eventually they did.
Yeah. I mean, Tyler's had what? How many? One. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 suits.
So 4 suits, one for each season. Then you have the Golden Age suit, 5, and then you could count the Bizarro suit.
That's that. I mean, that
So
would be the
that's
suit. That would be the suit for season 2, because his
Sure.
suit didn't change in season 2. The boots did, but so you have season 1 suit, Bizarro suit, season 3, and then season 4, because he did get a different suit. You have Golden Age suit, but then you have his black suit, and then you have his original Supergirl suit. That's 7. I said the man has had more Superman suits than any other actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's had a lot of suits, and I mean, thankfully they got better as they went along.
Yeah. So let's look back a little bit here, fellas. Tyler Hoechlin, the tenure of Superman has ended. He had an 8-year run from 2016 to 2024. It was announced in 2016 that he'd be playing Superman, and the first image of him as Superman sucked. It did. I have
Yes,
the
it
poster
did.
on my wall because it's him and Supergirl, and it really looks like he just showed up and they put him in the suit and took a photo, because in the episode he looks different than he does in the original photo. He would appear in 2016, The Adventures of Supergirl, which was the season 2 first episode, the premiere.
Season premiere. Yeah.
He would then be in The Last Children of Krypton, which was the second episode. He would then have a moment cameo at the end of Resist, and then the final episode of Nevertheless, She Persisted. He would then return in season 4, Elseworlds Part 3. He appeared on The Flash season 5, Elseworlds Part 1. The Flash season 6, Crisis on Infinite Earth Part 3. Arrow, Elseworlds Part 2. Batwoman season 1, Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2. Legends of Tomorrow episode 5, Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 5. So he did a 10 episode run appearance on the Arrowverse. Now, we all did a kind of Tyler recap of his tenure on the episode on the Arrowverse before this series launched, and we talked about how we really liked him as the character, but we didn't like what they were doing with the character, because they always kind of had to push him in the back, make him less powerful, because he didn't really have his own show, he didn't have his own stance, and so we were always kind of frustrated. Now, let's see here. Superman and Lois premiered on February 23rd, 2001 on the CW. This was the first poster that was used to promote the series, to announce the series. And it was announced, and it was supposed to come out sooner, but that little thing called COVID happened. But this was our first kind of indication that we were going to be getting this series.
Mommy.
Now, on February 3rd, 2021, the CW had ordered 2 additional episodes for the first season, bringing the number up to 15. 7 seasons was the original plan, but the reason to end Superman Lois after its 4th season is to avoid conflicts with the new Superman film of the DC universe. And, we had crap from the CW being sold, and this series should have went to Max, for seasons 3 and 4, and just been one of those Elseworld stories that, James Gunn had talked about that doesn't really seem to really happen other than Matt Reeves. The filming of season 1 began on October 21st, 2020. Superman and Lois was originally developed as a Supergirl spinoff, which would have taken place on Earth Prime as a continuation of Earth 38's Superman and Earth 38's Lois Lane post Earth Prime history. The final part of Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover presumably served as the setup. However, those plans included a crossover attempt with Supergirl and Batwoman were scrapped due to COVID-19 pandemic, and because the latter series was presented in letterbox format, unlike Superman and Lois, which used Atmos format. So the writers decided to place the series on Earth TUD-25 as a fresh start to the new live-action superhero shows and the new multiverse. Despite even returning actors for their parts, it was a completely different Earth with new characters and previously established characters being played by new actors. So that's a little background history. Now, before we dive into the episode proper, I do want to read you some quotes that was recently put up from Todd Helbring and Brent Fletcher, producers, writers, and showrunners. Prior to the CW's drama cancellation, co-showrunners Todd Helbring and Brent Fletcher hoped to have at least 7 seasons to properly tell the Man of Steel story. While they were able to work some version of everything they wanted into this final season, quite a few ideas remained untouched. Quote, if we had went on for a couple more seasons, we could have really explored Brainiac, Helbring tells TV Line of the iconic DC character. We would have had more cool and traditional Brainiac stuff, weaving in what was set up with the actor who played Milton. And if you thought Doomsday was a big get for Superman and Lois, wait until you hear what else the producers wish list. There was also a way to lead up to Darkseid that we talked about, Helbring reveals. I don't know if DC would have given us permission to use Darkseid, but we would have pitched the hell out of it to try and get it. That would have been a lot of fun. The producers had also hoped to get Adam Rayner back as Tal-Rho, last seen leaving for a new life in the Inverse world at the end of season 2. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it. It just came down to schedules, money, and time. And sadly, I feel that was a lot of issues just with this final season period, having the budgets slashed and everything. So that's kind of the background, bringing us to where we are.
Yeah, I mean the budget had to force them to be pretty creative where they could be, and really deal with the character stuff that hasn't been lacking in the entire series. It's always been pretty character driven, and they had to go really character focused this season, especially with the beginning and ending fight scenes and things like that. It's a lot of work and a lot of money. So I mean that's where a good deal of the budget had to be held. But I think they did it very well.
So overall, non-spoilers, we'll go around to say what you think about this season. We'll start with Bryan, or just this episode. We'll start with Bryan.
So, just my thoughts completely.
Yeah, non-spoiler, just
non-spoiler.
How you just feel overall.
I feel like definitely the first half was extremely rushed. Extremely. And I felt like the second half wasn't as rushed as the first half, but I felt like the second half was very good at being like, okay, we have this, we have this story tie here. Let's make sure we wrap that up good. We have this. Let's wrap this up good. Like it was done. It was the second half was done very well, but that first half was just very like boom, boom, boom. Um, that's just my thought. It made me cry, especially that second half. Um, I think it was probably the best ending that you could give to Superman, probably period. In terms of who he is as a character and just who he really was in this show. It was very powerful. I only have one complaint about it because I have to complain about something. That's what I'm here for. I just have one critique. But it really was beautiful. It really was such a great ending, and I'll say more in a few moments. So
Okay, James.
I mean, from the entire episode, there was a lot in the episode. I think the first half they did a really great job bringing all the characters together. Utilizing everybody. Um, I think it was powerful. The production value was great. It was beautiful. Um, I loved Doomsday's design, and the second half. Yeah, I had tears the first time. Just my eyes welled up and some tears fell. And the second time, I was choking up. So that second watch, really good. A really good show, really great ending. Um, uh, Bitsy she did some hard work in this episode. She did a good job, and honestly throughout the whole thing, but definitely during that first half. So, yeah, I really thought it was a great finale for the entire show, and um, it was a good episode, one of the best of the season.
I completely understand with what you're saying, Brian, about the beginning.
yeah,
And I'm wondering if I were to watch the 2 episodes back to back, if I'd feel the same.
oh yeah. If you watch them back to back as just one complete episode, I don't think I would have felt that.
And I
Yeah.
because I totally feel like they kind of almost like they added this 10, 15, about this 10, 15 minute, you know, part at the beginning of this episode that just kind of really feels like it ended the last episode and then gave us the latter half, which is like the let go. But this season specifically, every episode is 42 minutes. And they packed a lot into 42 minutes. And
Yeah, they
this,
sure did.
if you took the opening scene of this with like Lana and John Henry, and you just kind of edited that into where it would have fallen in the last episode and just had the last episode run into this one together, seamless, would have been perfect. That'll probably be an editing thing I'll work on once it comes out on home video. But I only have one minor little thing about this too. But other than that, I think this episode is done beautifully. I think it pays this tribute to the character and everything it's set up. There's so much in it. There are so many, like, I started rewatching season 1 and I'm about done. And Solomon and I are going to start rewatching season 2. And I think season 2 will have a lot more meaning knowing what happens down the line. And this really is, we talk a lot about how like there's that one kind of like version of the character that we hold up or tell people, like, if you want to know this character, see this. This is what I would recommend. This Superman show, but even character and everything is a beautiful blend of all Superman comics and movies and shows that have come before. And
it's very right.
I
Tyler's the best.
I said this to a friend of mine because he called me yesterday and he said, "Had you watched it?" I said I hadn't. He said, "Call me when you do," because he called me the night the premiere happened on the first commercial break, and we chatted. And so I called him yesterday and I said, "You know, everyone will always say that Chris is their favorite Superman, that he's the gold standard," and I said, "Not to me anymore. Tyler has done more work with this character on multiple levels." And the father aspect will always stay with me hard, that he is now my gold standard. And I think David will come in and do an amazing job, but I don't think anyone will touch the level of Tyler Superman to me and what his version has meant to me and has done for this character. And we'll talk about that because this being the series finale, there's a lot of like arcs and stuff that kind of get closed and things get hit on that we didn't even think about as the show had started, like how lonely and isolated this Superman really was, and how much more important it was when he revealed his secret to Lois and the journey he went on, so, but
I just want to say real quick, it was really funny that behind James, somebody walked through the doorway behind James, and at that exact second, Junior walked down the stairs. So on my screen, it looked like somebody was walking through that door, and then walking down the stairs of Tyler's. I'm just here for
Yeah, that goes right to Tyler's. Just
yeah,
walk
it's a
through
portal.
there.
It's a portal,
Yeah.
man.
Absolutely.
It's like the Matrix. You turn the key one way, it opens the door to here. You turn it the other way, and it goes over there.
Yeah.
If only.
I know, right?
So just piggyback on what you said, Tyler, like, you know, um, I've always been, um, well, when I was a kid, like I was always more of a kind of like a Superman guy. Like I would wear a Superman shirt and gosh, my computer screens are being stupid. Okay. I would wear a Superman shirt and people would call me Superman, and one of my old girlfriends nicknamed me Clark, and like, I liked it. I kind of went with it. Um but eventually I kind of became just more of a Batman guy because the way Superman was going, um, it didn't feel kind of like what I grew up with and kind of what I really liked. Like, because right when I graduated high school, kind of when we all were, Superman Returns came out, and you kind of felt like, unfortunately, Brandon was just kind of copying Reeves, and um, and Tom Welling was kind of his own thing. So Tom, like, I really did like Tom Welling, but he wasn't fully Superman yet. So, like, I mean, you guys are fathers, so you guys watching this Superman show, um, obviously it really hit you guys hard, as fathers
Yeah,
and
Jimmy just turned
husbands.
16.
Gosh, we're old. Yeah. um, but I unfortunately, I don't, I'll never be a biological father. Um, but season 3 of this show hit me really hard because season 3, when Lois gets cancer, my wife, um, that year she had a pancreatic attack, and she almost died. And just going on in my head during the time that the show was going on was like, am I going to lose my wife? And then seeing Superman, now I'm going to start crying. Just seeing Superman, like, of all the things he can do and all the people he can save, he can't save Lois. He can't beat cancer. And just wow, just so powerful. And with the budget that they had, and kind of, I wouldn't say lack of support from DC proper, whatever, like the head honchos. They had a low budget. It's on CW, but what they had was like, I'm going to tell this story of who Superman really is, and what struggles he really goes through, and the things he can't defeat, and the things he can't beat, and his great fears. And this show for these 4 or 5 years just made me just fall in love with Superman so much over again. And I don't know if you guys got to watch the Christopher Reeve documentary, but when Christopher Reeve got hurt and got paralyzed, like, all us comic book fans and Superman fans, some of us kind of died inside, because they're like, this could happen to Superman? Like, the Superman, and he's in a wheelchair, and you as we go through our weaknesses in life and we go through our difficulties, we want to see our heroes overcome things. So for Chris being able to do what he could do, it was great to see. But as we've grown as adults now, you know, you guys raising your kids, and then also seeing Superman raise his kids, like, that had to be something very special for you guys. And to see Superman go through the struggles of possibly losing his wife, that was something very special for me. And I know I just rambled here, but like, I think that it's kind of what you said, Tyler, that Tyler changed the game, man. Like, Tyler just made himself the definitive Superman in my eyes. Like, the definitive Superman. Like, we can argue all day of who the definitive Batman is, and I don't think we've had him yet, to be honest with you. But the definitive Superman, I gotta say, is Tyler, and that's all I have to say at this time. I have more to say, but I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah, I agree.
The Christopher Reeve story, just to let you know, December 7th, said it finally gave a date on Max, said coming December 7th. So I'm eagerly waiting for that to come.
It's
tomorrow,
amazing, man.
Looking forward to watching Creature Commandos, because that's coming.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, that's right here, right now, just about. So
Well, let's get back to this show.
Yeah.
I feel like we will talk about this a lot, and I feel like there'll still be things that we won't even get to discuss, because I'm going to say this. One thing I love about this finale is it bookends this series, and it frames it as if the entire series is the story Superman is telling us. Because after this episode was over, I went back and I showed Jania. We rewatched, me and the family, because this is one reason, like, you guys all got to watch it before I did, because Solomon caught up. He wanted to watch it with me and Jania. I always watch it with Jania, and Sayla wanted to watch it. So we all watched it as a family. Then we went back and watched the pilot beginning, where it opens with him narrating his life of being basically born on Earth. So you have Superman narrating the beginning and the end, and it just perfectly frames and bookends this entire series. So it feels like a complete story. Nice. And the way it does it, it's just a beautiful device in storytelling. But let's look at some.
I love that pilot.
Well, the pilot's beautiful. Let's look at some quick shots real quick here. I brought this one up last week, and we talked about how I love that they put the boys, Jordan in the red hoodie, Jonathan in the blue hoodie.
Yeah.
This is from the boys standing there with Clark. I like this shot, but I kind of wish they would have framed it just a little bit different with Clark a little bit more over, so that you saw like a boy, one of his sons on each side.
Mhm.
And then we have this shot here.
Yeah. The
And then
helicopter exploding.
and the reversal. And I'm going to pause there. We had to look at it. But this episode opens. I have my meticulous notes. And when we watched this, we got home from play practice and the family all sat down and were eating and watching it. And I had planned on going back and rewatching it and taking all my meticulous notes, but I didn't get to. So we're going to kind of work through this as much as we can. It opens with a scene that would have taken place a little bit earlier, and it's John Henry and Lana playing pool. And while they're playing pool and talking about, their relationship and how they don't get to spend as much time together as they would like, is when Doomsday reappears and an explosion knocks John Henry back. And we see Doomsday, beating on Clark.
And title card.
Yeah. And then as soon as the title card's over, we pick back up where we left off with Lois, yelling at Amanda McCoy. And I had hoped, part of me had hoped that Doomsday was just going to come back as they're fighting and just swat her and just send Amanda flying.
Right.
But I mean, we have Superman removes Doomsday from the streets and Metropolis takes him back to that stadium where they were training just moments before. And I love it that you have, Doomsday's just beating Clark. And Doomsday looks great. I don't even care. This is the best Doomsday design we've gotten. We've gotten a nice evolution of Doomsday from how it ended at the end of season 3 to where he is now. And how we have the two boys flying together and hit him together.
A little bit of F around and a little bit of find out.
Well, I just like how they're what do you call it? Like fraternals, and they,
fraternal powers activate.
Yeah, they come in and they hit him at rescuing Clark at the stadium where they were training, and he gives them a whole, "You're not ready for this. I just need you to go get people safe and stuff." And he goes off flying after Doomsday, and they continue to fight. And then they go back to downtown where Lois is telling her that he said that they need to be down there, not helping him.
Yeah, and Clark's back it and fight. Let's check out real quick this shot of Doomsday. The fact that he has spikes coming out of his chest right here on the symbol.
The S is for spikes.
That's pretty awesome and intense.
Yeah. I love that, how it's like a helmet. It's got the big bones, spikes brow across the head, and then this huge chin guard of bone spikes coming out of there and everything. Yeah, he looks awesome. And yeah, that I didn't even notice the spikes coming out of the chest. I didn't see that. So
I like how
either.
It looks pretty cool.
We have both John and Jordan heat visioning, blasting Doomsday to try to get him off of, fighting their dad. Now, Brian, I'm asking you a quick question. What do you
Yes, ma'am.
what do you think of Michael Bishop as John?
Was he the new kid or the original
Yeah,
kid?
the new kid.
Oh, I thought he did great. I mean, I really didn't have any issues with the first kid, but I think that this one, John Bishop, I said his first name right. It's John Bishop, right? Right.
It's Michael Bishop playing
Michael
John.
Bishop, John Bishop, Bishop from X-Men, whoever. So, I think that Bishop did probably a better acting job than the original kid, and that Bishop showed that he's different than Jordan. I think that the original kid had a lot of qualities like Jordan, especially in kind of season 2. He's still kind of like a bit whinier and like immature and stuff. But when Bishop came in, um, he kind of had a little bit more maturity, a little bit more confidence in the John character. Um, and I mean, I think that he was a great choice. I think he also looks a little bit closer to Jordan,
I agree.
to be brothers, and he looks a little bit more like Tyler. Um, I could see that kid playing the Superman one day.
I I th-
I could see both of them really, but you really see it with John. I think he had a little bit better acting chops. That's my opinion.
I think you know what it's gonna blow your mind. He was like he was one of the top contenders. It was like him and the guy from the first season for the part, and they went with the other guy. And I really wish they would have just given it to Michael Bishop to begin with because
Really?
I like him better as John.
Mhm.
And I think I feel the family dynamic better with him. But continuing so what happens is we learn that John has a prototype that they're going to use. But you're talking about Bitsy doing a great job of carrying, but the scene where she wakes Clark up off the ground and she's yelling at him, and he's yelling because the kids, came to help him, and she's yelling, "What are you going to do? If you're dead, you can't protect them anymore. You can't do this alone anymore." And that's a lot of, like we said, like his arc is Clark has been doing everything by himself. There is no other heroes on this earth, just him. And that's really why the birth of the super family is such a big deal here. Is it's finally Superman is not alone, and he doesn't have to do it all on his own. And he calls the boys back. They have a plan, and we have a nice little scene here with Doomsday kind of flying in to punch Superman, and he does a ode to Justice League films. Here.
Yeah. Yep. Pulls the Superman slow motion dodge.
Oh, I love that.
Right with
I
the
love
fist.
that so much.
Yeah.
Dude, and it is
looks
so
good.
close. It is so close when you see him move, and the spike is like right here as Doomsday passes him. And as Doomsday passes him, he gets hammered by John Henry Irons' hammer, pops Doomsday right in the head.
Dude, shatters his skull and the vertebrae down it. Superman x-rays him. He walks up on him. He x-rays him. And you can just see the skull and the spine is all shattered
And
from
the blood.
that freaking hammer. And and the blood on the face. Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
And it's dead. And he's going to come back stronger. And then Clark says, my favorite thing that Solomon had said moments before this.
Not if I take him to the sun.
Not if I throw him in the sun. And Solomon's like, that's what I said. I'm like, yep. But I mean, at least this sets it up where he says, And we learned this early on that the sun here does not heal him the way that the sun does to Clark. And it makes sense. And he states, I'm going to take him, throw him in the sun if I can do it fast enough. And, he takes off with Doomsday. And what's interesting is, if I was Jonathan and Jordan, I would have followed as far as I could just to be there to, help and everything. But as he takes him to the sun, we have one of probably the best moments. We have Lex Luthor, first of all, try to blow up Amanda McCoy, and she's seconds from being blown up as he reveals like his true intent with her, that she's saved by the boys. And then as Clark is throwing Doomsday into the sun, we see him starting to, break apart. And, as he's starting to break apart, he becomes conscious again. And we have one of the greatest shots, which is this right here.
Yeah.
Which
Get a
is
close up on his face, and he blinks, and his eyes turn from black to blue.
We go back into seeing this is like his moment of redemption. And it's interesting because I wonder if it's because, it was a head trauma that he's coming back from. And it just, for that split moment, right before Superman punches him, he stops him. And it's that moment, he said, his eyes go back to blue. And it's the otherworld Superman. And this is his finish, This is him sacrificing himself. And what I love about this scene is he does this pose here, and he starts to fall back in the sun, and we see him starting to break apart, and he's dying. And Superman hesitates, but then pushes him as almost that mercy kill, like to help speed up the process. Instead of just letting him, the gravitation of the sun pull him and it being a slower process, he pushes him.
Yeah,
And
that scene that you had there, he was out, like he just opened up, and that's when Superman just came in and gave him a push to send him back, and he just fell back to the sun, disintegrating as he got closer and closer, or incinerating.
And then, of course, Clark hangs out at the sun for a moment, and it heals.
Charging up and healing.
And Lois is in the Gazette recording with Lana on camera, Amanda McCoy there, and of course, Milton takes over the network, and they can't broadcast. And John Henry asks, basically, where is he? And basically takes a team to Milton. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit at the moment, but when they bust in on Milton and everything, I told Jania, I was like, I would have broken his leg. Just been like, I can't kill him, but I've been like, oh snap, like, just broke his leg. Like, oh, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Right.
But Lex comes flying through, and this was the part that I was like, oh snap, because he blasts John with a red solar missile.
Yeah.
And John goes flying through into the hotel, and then he takes Jordan down, and he has him. He's choking him, and he's on top of him. And this is my one real pet peeve complaint in this episode: is Jordan should have been able to heat vision Lex right in the face, right there, and just melted his face Brightburn style, like just. But if he would have done that, it wouldn't have gave it. It almost wishes that he would have had Jordan like from the neck from behind, so that his face was planted into either turned sideways where he couldn't turn his head, or in the ground,
right?
So that he couldn't get his eyes around to him. But this is where we get that amazing scene of Elizabeth Tulloch calling him out.
Yeah.
And
Telling him he's always been terrified of her, and he has to wear a war suit to fight her 16-year-old son.
he's like, with powers.
We have
Yeah.
powers, James.
With
We have
powers.
powers.
She said Clark didn't have any powers when he beat your ass on this street.
Loved it. Oh man, I love that so much.
He's like, you can't stop me. No, but he can. And then here he comes, powered
Yeah.
from the sun, and boom, takes Lex. And dude, this was just one of those cheer moments where you're just like, so Lex shoots Superman in the chest with his kryptonite drilling
Kryptonite screws.
that are drilling into his chest, going after his heart. And how did you guys feel about that? Like, just seeing that, like,
Oh, I thought the kryptonite screws were totally badass. I thought
Going
they were really
after his
cool.
weakness.
But like, well, me being me, he should have still been bleeding a bit. Like after he got him out, like the holes were totally gone. There was no holes in his uniform.
oh no, that I did laugh about that because he pulls it out and there's a hole right there in his chest in his uniform.
Yep.
And then it cuts away, and when it cuts back, it's healed. So I just pretend like the suit is like living Kryptonian tech. It just healed it. It's like nano.
Well, I mean, we see how they're made later. So, I mean, why not? It just kind of fills in.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right.
Let's roll with it.
Right.
Let's roll with it.
Maybe a little bit fills in, It's probably not unlimited when it comes to a single suit, but might be able to cover up that hole or them holes,
I will say this real quick, that Sayla was not happy that it was a dark blue. She's like, it looks black. I'm like, no, baby, it's a dark blue. She's like, it looks black. I'm like, well, it's kind of their version of the black suit. Instead of doing a black suit.
She takes after her Uncle Bryan.
He did a dark blue.
Should be light blue. Right.
But we have basically Lex. He just keeps punching Lex, and he gives him like, this is for my wife. Or, you came after my family, my friends, my town. And he's like, it ends right now. And he goes flying to him. And, this really helps that in the previous episode, we had the conversation about John Henry's war suit, how powerful it is, how it almost, could have killed him and all this. Because it had been a while since we saw the war suit battle, Superman. So it did help that we had recently had that conversation in the fortress when the boys were fighting the simulation, and then supposedly Lex's, suit has been upgraded. And, thinking about symmetry and storytelling, how, when this show premiered, we thought the stranger was supposed to be Captain Luthor in the suit. Now here we are ending with Lex Luthor in the suit.
Okay. Buddy. Yeah, for real.
And
like,
in a way,
all the red herrings in the show, like even when they had like Bizarro come out of the mine and stuff, and you're like, oh gosh, it's Doomsday because of the suit of original Doomsday, and then it ends up being Bizarro, and you're like, oh man, they got us, what a twist.
No.
And then the Bizarro became Doomsday. And
like I said,
blah.
Right. I mean, I love that he eventually becomes Doomsday. Like I said, the only thing that always freaking grinds my gears about that reveal when he comes out of the mines and he looks like Doomsday is he's huge. He's huge, stomping around and hitting people. Like he's close up to people, and he hits somebody, and he's like Doomsday standing next to a normal person. But then it's just Tyler Superman. So it's like that suit was just that big, but it doesn't appear that big when he takes off the helmet, So it was totally like
a fat suit.
It was totally just lying to you when it came to that. Like it's not like we're not like saying that, oh, he's got this suit. I mean, because they could have still done the containment suit, and then but when he got outside the mine and started fighting people, he shouldn't have been like Doomsday bigger. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit bigger because it's like this large suit and he's Superman inside of it, but not like 8'9" Doomsday stomping around and being that big. You know what I mean? That's the only one that annoys me is like you tried to red herring that, and that was just like a bold-faced lie.
So we have Superman coming towards Lex, and we get this great shot of him in the clouds with his fist out, which is just like a comic book cover. And because you can't see the cape and everything, it looks dark. And then he punches Lex, and we get this beautiful image here where he punches him
Whoa, that's so big.
He punches him out of the suit. And,
yeah, it was totally a Matrix punch.
I mean, and Lex
Doctor Strange punch.
Well, you know how he was able to like punch the earth, separate and make sure and separate the planets as they were merging. Like he's able to deliver a punch that only destroyed the entire war suit around him.
Because he's that good.
Yeah.
And then he catches Lex and he puts him there. And this scene is great when he puts him on the ground and like he looks at his family and they run up and they hug him. And they're hugging him. And Jania the whole time is like, don't turn your back on Lex Luthor. Don't turn your back on Lex Luthor. You know, and she's on like edge, like, don't have your back to Lex Luthor. And I'm like, I think he'll be okay because the boys are kind of like have Luthor, and then Lana is off to the side, you know, seeing Luthor. And when that hits, okay, because I have it playing here in the back as we're doing this, we're 20 minutes in at the 1 year later mark.
Oh, almost exactly the halfway point.
Exactly. And then and then I thought, like, as soon as it opened to the scene, I knew instantly what it was. I was like, oh, like I did a little bit. It's like what I'm like, watch, because I figured it out immediately. And Clark's walking Lana down the aisle as we see Kyle holding his baby. Chrissy's pregnant again. It's like, come on, dude, Kyle, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
But Clark's walking Lana down the aisle and she's marrying John Henry. And Sayla's like, why is Clark walking down the aisle? And I'm like, well, her dad's probably dead. Clark's been her best friend. And right as I said that is when she hugs him and says, you know, the thank you for always being my best friend line. And it was a great scene, you know. And then Lois is marrying them and gives them that speech about friendship and her friendship with them and how these two found each other. And I was like, this is sweet. I'm glad.
Yeah. The way that the wedding scene is edited, I love it. You know, like you said, she gives the speech about her friendship with Lana. She gives a speech about her friendship with John Henry. And then after that, they get into the vow, the whole spiel, and she does each one's side, except for when it's the same thing and it's just said once, and then it goes to back, and then it and over that you see the reception, a bunch of stuff at the reception and everything. And then it comes back to the wedding when she asks them both, and they both say, I do, and I do. The editing of it was great.
The editing is a beautiful way to tell a story and get a message across in condensed small amount of time. By doing that, like you said, we're jumping to the reception, then kind of moving back. We're able to cover more ground than being linear. Candace is there. The other Cushing daughter's there.
Yep.
You don't see her face.
There.
You see her back as she's dancing.
No, you see her face when she's sitting next to Kyle and the baby. She's there. You see her face. And then they don't show her again at the reception, but she's there just off screen. You can see her arm.
No, man, they Judy Winslow's her. Like I didn't see her there. And I was really looking. I didn't see
No,
her.
she was there. She was there
Psh,
next to
Well.
Kyle at the wedding.
what?
Yeah,
They did that girl dirty. Just like Judy Winslow, and just like wasn't there another daughter on Boy Meets World?
Well, Topanga had a sister that didn't have a sister. And
Oh, yeah,
also
Topanga's sister.
in
Donna
Happy
had a
Days,
sister in that
Donna had a
70s
sister that
show, and then
yep.
she never had a sister.
In Happy Days, even back that far, they had an older brother that just disappeared. So they give a nice little kind of last moment to Kyle and Lana having a dance. And then Jordan has a little nice moment with Sarah about making senior year the best. And Nat has a moment with John Henry at the reception. And
about this earth feeling like home now.
yeah.
Very good touch.
And then we have a beautiful moment between Clark and Lois back in the farmhouse. And we find out that Luther got life in prison. And the next scene was ballin'.
Yeah, got life in prison, and his appeal was denied.
And so now he's in Strikers. And they say, you'll find things different than last time you were here. And he's like, you won't have your amenities. And he's like, this wasn't my cell. He's like, I know. And then they say, open 1A. And what happens, fellas?
Well, Bruno's like, hey,
Bruno Mannheim.
What's up, buddy? I'll be
Says he's gonna make Lex his chair.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah. And I mean, even in like the last episode in this, you have this redemption, small redemption, not even a full arc, but toward Bruno Mannheim. You know what I'm saying? So you're getting a little bit of closure with the person that he's becoming, even though he's in prison, he's going to keep Lex in check because we learned that Mannheim's now pretty much running the prison.
Yeah,
because we got that illusion last episode when Lois was at the prison talking to him.
Right. He's that idea that the Penguin got across about being that gangster who helps the community and has that type of respect. So yeah, he's running the prison, and yeah, that was nice to see Lex get put in his place. Denied everything.
So we're now at the 30-minute mark. And this is where it kind of cuts black. And when it comes back, we're at the voice narration where he starts saying, the first time I died, there was nothing but darkness. Then suddenly I came back. But and then it kind of recaps, about Sam's sacrifice. And then which is sad because like we didn't get like, I will say that the one character that I had hoped would make some sort of a cameo, and they said there was going to be a cameo in this episode. I had hoped it was going to be Jenna Dewan. Because that one made a little bit more sense just because like bringing Lucy back, we've lost Sam. We kind of forgot to mention Lucy at all in this season. Like a line of dialogue about when Sam died about getting a hold of Lucy would have been nice. My ultimate dream was for Cameron Cuff to, show up or something,
Yeah.
tie it to Krypton. But when we start getting this beautiful message of like being taught a lesson by Superman about the world that he came back to, about people losing faith in each other and humanity and themselves, and the world felt broken. And he started thinking about the legacy, and we see this shot of the fortress building the boys' suits.
Yeah, that was so cool.
And so one thing I wanted in this season was I wanted Jordan, because at the time it was just Jordan, to get a suit. Well, he did in the last episode. A little frustrating, but I'll still take it.
It's better than what they did with Welling in the finale
Yes.
of Smallville.
And what's neat is if you look carefully, like their S's both look great on their chest. And then we get this scene that I'm going to pull up here properly of the super family with Superman flying his boys. And then one of the other things I wanted was Steel with the symbol on his chest and the cape.
Yeah.
Well, you got it, buddy.
Yep. And Nat's even got a red symbol on her chest, which is more or less kind of what hers is in the comics.
Yes.
What's
Yeah.
your
I mean,
favorite?
I hope that those guys just Steel. He usually just calls her Natasha when they're communicating.
Okay.
Yeah, like they did a thing where they called her Starlight in one episode,
Okay.
which was like, okay. But yeah, in the comics of it's really just Steel. And then like
That's
I thought
what
this
I thought. I thought she was just a second Steel, but I know.
And then-
they changed it up.
we got this shot here, like from the side view.
Yeah,
with
I
the
hope
look.
that the boys got to wear these costumes, like actually have had them made for just this shot alone.
Yeah, I do too. I
So,
think they deserve
'cause
it.
they look great. I love giving the respect to Connor in both of them. You know, we've got
Different-
the new 52 Jordan suit that he's wearing, and then John is wearing the more classic 1990s Superboy suit. But they're
And I'm
both
glad-
Connor.
I'm glad they went with the Superboy suit because we've talked about this before, how this John Kent isn't exactly like the comics John Kent that we have. It's a different because he was different, but I'm glad they didn't give him more of like the Superman quote suit that John has, right now. So and then we talked about, like I said, about how Superman mentions being alone. And this represents with the super family here that he doesn't have to do this. He's not alone. He is going to continue to be Superman, and as his powers, start to go, he has family and friends, that'll continue the fight, and that it's not over. And I wish we would have got to learn a little bit more exactly what he says. I want to help fix it. And he's talking to Bruno Mannheim, and Bruno says, "Is he really serious about this?" Like, I kind of wonder more about what he was working with Bruno Mannheim about to help, because they have this beautiful handshake scene.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in his speech, he does talk about a lot of things that they can do, that they work towards doing for the world, and for people. Just they start a foundation which is called For All Seasons.
I was going to ask you guys if you caught it right
Yep.
here. The foundation. If you caught the name, it's on the boxes. It's For
Sure
All
did,
Seasons.
Mr. Patrick.
That's my boys right there, guys. It's my boys. I try to get as many screen grabs and great shots because there are so many. I mean, there are so many Easter eggs and beautiful things that happen, in this. And they start this and they talk about, they use their celebrity and their fame for positive to change the world. We see Lois Lane delivers powerful speeches. Superman feeds the homeless. Unlike how the Bizarro Superman's family did it incorrectly. Samuel Lane Medical Center is opened. And then we start showing a little bit of the age. And he does the voiceover. And he's wearing the glasses again, but this time it's more, he might need the actual glasses now.
Right.
And we see John and Jordan walk in, and then as they're walking, they age up to adults.
Yes,
And
they do.
I don't know the one
And
actor.
is this the cameo that they were talking about? Because it seemed
Yeah.
like cameo. Okay. Because
That's
I was
what
like, there's no other cameo except for just a recognizable face playing
Yeah.
Jonathan.
Yep. That's I wanted him to play Bruce Wayne on this series if they ever got into it. I always said he would be a great Bruce Wayne. I mean, he
Yeah.
did voice Batman in like that horrible Batman animated film. The one that's basically a bronze tiger. It's the
Oh, the Soul of the Dragon.
Yeah, the Soul of the Dragon.
Oh, that was him? Nice.
Yeah. But
I have to rewatch that.
notice how he's the one that hugs Lois.
Yeah.
Why the actor playing Jordan hugs Tyler.
I told Jamie, I said, yeah. I said, they're married. She's like, ew, ew.
I'm like, it's called acting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah, it was cool to see Grimm on the show though.
Yeah. And he's directed episodes, but dude, just the way the camera pans over and the boys get married and we see what do you call it? We see they have kids and they don't say it. Okay, guys.
There's like 8 or 10 of them kids, man.
So John's wife is blonde and Jordan's has dark hair. Okay. Now, the actress who's playing Jordan's wife looks like she could be a grown-up Candace. Okay. But Solomon goes, did John marry Candace? And I'm like, I don't know, because she's blonde. But then I'm like, but did Jordan marry Sarah? They don't say.
They don't say, but like
she has dark hair.
Somewhat like that, and that's one thing I wanted. Like when Jordan was talking to Sarah at the wedding, I wanted there to be like some type of reconciliation. Like, no, I mean, probably that's the wrong word choice, but like, I don't know. I wanted there to be more of like them coming back together. Because like I kind of felt that I don't know. I kind of felt like they really should have came back together. Like when she asked him, what's it like being a hero? And he's like, feels good. I really wanted them to kind of come back together or hint that they got married, something.
I feel like it's alluded kind of like that they're going to kind of work it out. Like, I like the idea that they kind of both grew up, went their own way, and came back together. Like they came back together,
Right.
after a few years after high school, that they grew up. That's my headcanon. But John met somebody new. Maybe the girlfriend he had originally before Candace that just disappeared. Maybe that's who he married. I can't remember her name right now off the top of my head. You know what I'm saying? How Candace just randomly showed up in the series out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think he switched girlfriends over the summer or something.
Yeah. And then we get like Lois and Clark aging again, sitting on the porch. And it's just beautiful filming of these beautiful like little vignette scenes of just them together passing through time. And we know that there are stories and adventures being had, but it's okay. We don't have to see them. Like we know that he continued with fighting with his sons, and I would love a comic book series based off just Jordan and Jonathan together.
Absolutely.
And then we have
new Super Sons book.
And then we have Lois's cancer returns, and we have this beautiful scene of him with her as the boys are there. And, right before she passes away, what does she say, guys?
Daddy.
Yeah. And that hit us all hard, and the kids were like, why'd she say that? And Janina's explaining, like, they say that before you pass, you see family that has already passed. So if you guys die before me, I'll probably see you guys, as I'm laying there taking my last breath. I'll be like, Bryan.
Oh, I'm totally down for you. No, totally.
He's like, I'm calling it. calling my shot.
Absolutely.
Um,
I'll be up
but
there with a case of cherry wine, ready to go. You know,
um,
we'll finally be able to watch, Superman. Well, Kevin Smith's Superman movie with
yeah,
Christopher Walken as Brainiac. My dream. Yeah, whatever.
but the
James will
scene,
still be alive. He'll be
yeah,
1,000
he'll
years
probably
old.
still be like, yeah.
Absolutely.
But her passing and Tyler's acting is just, it's so, I believe them as a couple. Like they have great chemistry,
Yeah.
And as much as like I still think The Flash is the second best CW show, and I think Grant was great. His chemistry with Candace, who played Iris, I never like
Non-existent.
it didn't feel he had better chemistry with Patty,
Patty.
but and I think that's important when you but Tyler and Bitsy's chemistry and his like crying scene here when she passes, it gets you. And then you look at the symmetry that the two women that meant the most in his life that he loved died in the same bedroom.
Oh, dude, I
Mhm.
didn't even think about that.
His mom died in that.
Oh man, yeah.
And that goes back to that book ending thing. And now Lois passes, in that scene.
Oh, he dies in the same bed.
And then he died, then he dies in the same bed. And that scene got me a lot harder than it put it because years ago, now I'm gonna start crying. I had a very vivid dream of me dying. And it was me in a hospital bed, and Solomon was holding my hand, and he said, "It's okay, Dad, you can go." And it was just me, Solomon, and Selah. And it felt so real. So that scene where he's laying there and his kids are holding his hand got me. And then it talks about he continues to just kind of go through that. The boys come by and check on him daily, but things have never been the same since she's passed. And so, what do? You get a dog, fellas.
You
You
get a
get
dog.
he goes, "Why have I never had a dog before?"
Yeah, yeah. He's like, how have I
Yeah, I know,
never
right?
had a dog before?
And I think it's beautiful. He got a dog. He named him Crypto, and he's like,
Who looks to be like the same breed as Shelby from
Mm.
Smallville,
Yep.
who
Yep, you
Lois,
noticed that. Of course,
yeah,
you noticed that.
who Clark said was gonna be Crypto, and he names him Crypto.
I love that he's like, we take lots of walks together, then we take lots of naps.
Yeah.
And
He's walking with Kyle on the street, like in the next scene, walking the dog, and on the wall there's 25 years. Yep, celebrating 25 years of
Yes, thank
Steelworks
you.
Industries. Yeah.
Yep, that was very it was easy to miss. Like in
yeah,
the background.
everyone missed it but me. And I was like, and I kind of like my head canon because of that is that John Henry built Steelworks and he built the factory in Smallville, which helped bring back the town to life by having the headquarters and everything of Steelworks based in Smallville.
Nice.
That's kind of my head
I
canon
like it.
because it's on the wall there and everything.
Yeah,
I like,
Steelworks kind of revived the town 25 years ago.
and I mean, he
Yeah,
married the
that's
mayor.
awesome.
You know what I'm saying? He married the
Well,
mayor.
also why that's really important is because Nat's talking to him, and she's like, "What about Steelworks? Like, what about all the things that you wanted to do?" And he's like, "Well, we have to work for the DoD. Like, do you want this? Like, this is what we need. Superman's weak. Like, there's no other defense, and for him to be able to go and make Steelworks with Nat, and not like how many times you watch a show with so many characters, and I had to quit moving my hands because it's delaying my camera. But like, how many times you watch a show where you feel like all these other side characters didn't really get a decent ending to their story,
Mhm.
but this was like, okay, Kyle and gosh,
Chrissy.
Chrissy, got to have more kids, and she was so scared to have a kid with him, and she was so scared to be married to him, and like they're doing great, and then Lana and John get married, and Steelworks happens, and like everybody had a very fitting ending, which
And
we're gonna wrap up more in a second. So
I love that Kyle and Clark stay friends. And he's there and he's like, and he says, thanks to Kyle, I didn't die.
Yeah, we didn't even say. We kind of just went. I wanted to call out the background first. That's why I didn't say what happened in the scene. Like they're walking and Clark has a heart attack on the street. He says, ironically, almost in the exact same spot his dad died. And he said, but thanks to Kyle, I didn't die there. And Kyle had them somebody call 911 while he gave him CPR. And then the next scene we have is him in the same bed with the boys at his side holding his hand.
Yeah. And this scene is beautiful, how they envision his spirit sitting up and he's giving the speech about, it's kind of like the idea of like life flashing for your eyes and what it means. And I love that he's wearing the shirt that he wore in the pilot when he like tells the boys who he is and everything.
Mm.
And this is just, it's a beautiful way to kind of say goodbye to these characters. And I guess they wanted Sam Lane to reappear in this, but like he gets up and he talks and he sees the young actors of Jonathan and Jordan and he hugs them in the house. And it's a beautiful scene of like saying goodbye to each actor and saying goodbye to like the house set, he talks about hope and he sees his grandkids. And there is a lot of them. But the one where you have Luther sitting at the dinner table, and he's got tears in his eyes, and just Michael Cutlass's performance of Luther just looking as a man broken. And he sits down at the table with him, and he looks at him, and he says forgiveness. And that's the character, man. Like, and I mean, there's no words like from Cutlass, but just the eyes and the acting right there is
right. Well, we don't see what happened. I mean, last thing we see is that 1 year later, he's got life in prison. Yeah, he's got no one. He left everyone behind. He screwed everyone over, and he got he probably got like beaten and humiliated and things like that in prison.
Yeah, and humbled, and it just, and then he talks about friendship, and he sees Kyle and Chrissy, and
I think he even says family, and it's Lana and and John.
Yeah, I was like, he says family, and there's Lana and John. Yeah,
yeah,
and because I was like, you can't like not have them.
Yeah, and then he turns around and the boys are there, and that's when they open the door, the front door.
And
when
there's
they
Lois,
open that door,
and there's Lois standing in that red dress.
Niagara Falls.
And he's just smiling. I like that she's in the red dress in one breath, but another way I was like, I kind of think it would have been neat if it was like her back in the outfit when he first met her from the Daily Planet.
Right.
Like just kind of that idea of like from the moment he saw her there, it's always been her.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Kind of reaffirming that. But then just the lighting of like him walking out there to her and just the lights, and he talks about love.
That was the dress that made her feel so beautiful.
Yeah.
So for them, entering, the afterlife, heaven, whatever, and her to, be at her where she felt the most beautiful. I think that's perfectly fitting.
But it's kind of
yeah.
But I was just thinking, like, it's his perception of her, and it's her waiting for kind of like greeting him. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's all kind of his point.
Well, I mean, I think to a certain extent it's his point of view, but also when it comes to Superman comics and the death of Superman, there has been like afterlife astral plane type stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I think it's partly his perception and partly, Lois is waiting for him,
I
you
kind of
know?
my headcanon is that Luther died before him. So like the idea of
I'm
maybe like
sure.
that same thought
Even
that was really like Luther's spirit, kind of thing. Um, and then we get the final title card, fellas, and it's this
Yep.
beautiful gold. And like I said, like when you think about it, like the show is named Superman and Lois. And when this ends, both Superman and Lois have passed on. So their story is over. You know, that's it. Like their story is done. And the way they end it with that like book ending of and story is so well done because it lets you know that there are things that happened, but we're just kind of going out on the high notes and letting you know how it all wraps up. And it does it in like the title of it went by so fast. Um it did. Like, I mean, it just feels like the other day we started watching this and here we are done with season 4. Um this show is a show that I was so excited for. And as of now, this ends our kind of current coverage of some sort of show and property till we get the next season of My Adventures.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about the other DC shows, but we don't cover those like we cover these, like we covered Supergirl, like we covered Krypton, like we even covered Legion of Superheroes. Like, how many shows have we actually covered
Yeah.
in complete covered completely from pilot to finale?
Yeah. Um been 3, as they air.
Yeah, as they air, 3 of them.
Well, on Gravely Amusing, I'm going to cover Creature Commandos for sure,
Oh,
because of all the monsters and stuff.
Nice.
So I'll definitely be talking about that. But it's kind of bittersweet, that that's all over.
yeah.
We talked about the end of the DCEU, and how that went, and it's kind of interesting to kind of compare the two, um, of how all the DC movies ended as we know it didn't really end very well. It like didn't have a good bookend. It didn't have a good finale. But DC TV, as we know it or we knew it, ended so very well. It I mean it didn't completely start with Smallville, but like CW wise, the way we know, started with Superman, and it started so well, and Smallville ended so well, and now Superman and Lois, started and ended so well with such a great story. Um, it has me very hopeful for how Superman will be handled in the future, with David and James. Um, I think we have a lot to look forward to. Like, even though Superman and Lois is done, and CW universe is done, um, I I'm very hopeful for Superman's future. I think that this show taught us a lot of things we never really thought about Superman. I think that us being comic readers, of course, we knew he was like as a father, as a husband, but we didn't get to see that before the show. And
Mhm.
this show showed that side of him, being a husband and being a father, and just and I really did appreciate, and you touched on this just a little bit, guys, that how lonely he really was, with his secret, and who he was, and they handled that so well. Um, I think that this just showed James, and James Gunn and the rest of the world, what Superman can be. Because, and
Mhm.
I've said this so many times, like I just want to see kids running around with towels around their neck again, and just pretending to fly and be Superman again. because that's that's what we had when we grew up, and I and one of my favorite scenes of Superman period is in Man of Steel, where he's a kid and he has that towel around his waist and the clothesline, and it's just blowing in the wind. Um, it's just, yeah, like that's what I want to see, man. And if this is the way Superman's going, with Superman and Lois and My Adventures of Superman, um, I think the future is just so bright. Better tomorrow's coming.
I did like, okay, and that was, he did say, she said, "What will Superman and Lois's legacy look like? What will we be remembered for?" And she goes, "Truth, justice." He goes, "In a better tomorrow." And it didn't feel tacky,
Wow.
and it didn't feel cheesy. And I know some people haven't liked that tagline. I do. I've never liked In the American Way, because the character, I feel like that makes it too American, but that's a whole nother conversation. Um, I love that was in there, and that goes back to Levi. I talked to our friend Levi. As of this recording, shout out! This is Levi's little boy's birthday today.
Ooh, happy birthday.
Happy
'Cause
birthday, little boy.
I invited him, Levi, to join us because he was messaging me, and he said, this show and this episode and stuff, this is the reason why we love this character. This is a depiction of why we love this character and why we are fans like we are of Superman. And I think that's the highest thing to hold and praise this show is. This is Superman. It is the best, most purest version, I think, of this character that we're gonna get and have. And when people say Superman's boring and not related to, no, it's completely wrong. I love this show in the sense that it finally moved Superman's story forward. Smallville was like going into the past and everything. And like you said, Bryan, like we know so much from the comics because we're reading them, but just in the mainstream pop culture, and like with James Gunn's upcoming film, like I'm glad that it's not an origin story, but it is in a sense back more than where we got him here, where we've moved him farther down his life. And I'm going to kind of miss that of just Superman being, uh, the story being a Superman that really that I relate to and hits me in a lot of spots because of being older, the husband, the father. And
Yeah. When it comes to the Superman show, yeah, Tyler, he's a gold standard. His Clark was so great. Kind of no matter where he was placed, whether he was in Metropolis and the Daily Planet or he was in Smallville around friends and being an assistant coach at the school to be with his boys. I mean, uh, so relatable. He was a person, he did everything because it's what he believed to be the right thing, and he was still a flawed individual. He made mistakes. He made mistakes by his wife. He made mistakes by his kids. He made mistakes as Superman, but he always did his best to, recover from those things and learn from them and move on. He was, um, he was a great version of the character, a delineation of Clark and Superman. When he was wearing the suit, he stood straighter. He carried himself a little more higher. Um, like, and his Clark could seem so uh, lackadaisical. I mean, he could just be a random person walking down the street almost. They did a great job delineating. He did a great job delineating between the two, but also being the same guy. Uh, it was really good. He is great. He is definitely probably the best. Like when it comes to that, uh, he's probably the best Clark and the best Superman. I mean, arguably, but that's subjective, and everybody's going to have their favorites still.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, Tyler's not going to be my favorite, but he's probably not going to like be my favorite, but he's definitely in favorites. He would definitely be my number 2, but as the best Superman, he's number 1.
James's
You
favorite
know,
is truly Kirk Allen. We know this.
absolutely. But it is so good to see the CW TV, the CW DC era end on such a high note. Um, Especially, I mean, Smallville was great. It had its ups and downs. It lasted for a long time. The Arrowverse lasted quite a while. It had some great shows starting out, had some stumbles along the way, and then it had some really great things come back around. And then it could never recover after Crisis. And then after COVID, it just seemed like it was over, and the DCCW was pretty much floundering, and this sucker picked up the ball and held it and like scored, won, you know it won the freaking it won the game with a last ditch effort, with it just
It was like
it
Bill
scored.
Murray coming at the end of Space Jam. Can I be of assistance?
Right.
Man, we're on defense. Oh,
I don't play defense
it,
anyway.
it is sweet.
Yeah, but
because
is nice to see the CW go out on such a high note. DCCW.
it is bittersweet because I would have loved more of this show for it to continue. But I'm glad that it's going out on a high note with us wanting more and not really complaining about, oh, it sucked in this season and I wish they would have done this. And then they kept doing this,
No.
What's the best complaint you can give something? I wish there was more of it.
Yeah.
Like, it went out before it had a chance to get bad, but
Yeah.
great. It for 4 years, it was a great show.
And I think that I think we talked about this before. I think we're at the time now where we need to see our heroes and characters be parents and be married and have those kind of adult problems and situations. We need to see them grow. Like, so many times we just get, okay, let's reboot this. Let's take it from the top. Came from a spaceship from Krypton. It blew up. Parents murdered in an alleyway. Uncle Ben's dead. We're not seeing them grow naturally and get ahead as characters. We're not seeing them grow with us. And we can still have those universes where they're young and doing their thing. And I think that's what the new 52 could have been. It could have been separate, kind of like Marvel's Ultimate Universe was. But what kills me is Marvel said recently, once again, that Spider-Man and Mary Jane, we can't have them married. Can't do it. It ruins the character. And one of the worst Spider-Man stories ever was where they had Spider-Man give up his marriage to save Aunt May, who's like 100 years old, and she can die. So if Marvel's going to keep kind of things like status quo and things kind of the way we know them, DC needs to take that next step to be like, okay, DCU, we're bringing in Damian, we're showing Batman as a father, and we're showing the family. And I when Superman was announced as Superman Legacy, I said it 100 times. I want that movie to end. I mean, it's just called Superman now, so who knows? But I want that movie to end with the birth of Jonathan Kent. And this is Superman's legacy. And for Tyler in the show to say, like, I'm just thinking, I think about legacy a lot. And what I'm leaving behind is Superman. And, I mean, me being me, I think about legacy a lot, you know, and I think that DC's legacy needs to be that these characters are growing and we're seeing that maturity in it, and we're seeing these new stories that we never thought about, and we joked before, like DC needs to do a story called Midlife Crisis,
Yep.
um,
I'll write
but
it.
I think that's the way we need to go, and I think Superman and Lois absolutely proved that we need this growth in characters, and we need to see them grown up and in new light.
I 100% agree, because I think, what you got with this series was you have Superman for the kids, which is Jonathan and Jordan.
Yeah,
And then
for
you
real.
have Clark for us, who identify, who are, older, who are parents, who are husbands, who, people who, like you said, like seeing our characters grow with us and feeling connected to these characters like that, because they are facing the same things that we are. And I've said, you brought in Spider-Man, like it's funny because when I'm in high school, the Spider-Man that I get in the cartoon is in college, when I'm in elementary school. Then
Yeah.
when Spider-Man finally makes it to a movie, I'm in high school. He's in high school for like 10 seconds at the beginning, and then he's an adult.
Yeah,
And
then he's
then
in college.
I'm out of college and everything, and all of a sudden, boom, he's a kid in high school. So it's like,
And we're not fans of that Spider-Man too much because now we want him to be where we're at.
so here we are, it's like I missed my mark with Spider-Man because it came at times when it wasn't aligning to me, but Superman was there. Smallville hit when I was in high school, and this hits now. And I think this show will be a legacy on the character. And I think this show will grow when I think this show will continue to grow and be popular and be rediscovered by people. When this season hits Max, I hope it comes to Max soon. Kind of like how they did back when Netflix got the CW shows a week and a day after they ended, they were on Netflix. I hope
Yeah.
that within this month that the final season is on Max for people to enjoy, and I'm really gonna miss it.
I think it will be there because I think Max is already showing the season 4 logo for the show.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so
I thought that was weird that it was showing the logo, but yet it's not showing the season. And we will be revisiting Superman and Lois. I have it slated for 2026, but we might put it in 2025. I haven't decided. Kind of doing a commentary rewatch back at the of the pilot. We'll see. As part of next year's plans. But Bryan, thanks for joining us, man. Like, I know we'll have more to say, and this is gonna stay with us. Like, I feel like this ended, but it's resonated with me on a different level, that it just kind of sits with you, and
yeah.
it'll be
Thanks for
there
having me, man.
anytime. James, couldn't do this without you.
Appreciate it. I enjoy it.
I messaged James and I said, we were talking about this and we're getting ready to record this, and the episode of this I think is so interesting because it's such a thing to think about. It went by so fast, and I said, James, like, we've been
Yeah.
doing this for years.
Years.
Years of podcast. I think I only did this for like a year, maybe a year and a half without you, and I'm like, it went by so fast, like all this time. And
Let's say, what was it, September 2016?
And Bryan and I were
No.
talking about
2017.
Yeah, I think so. I have to double check. I'm horrible with dates, but I was like, Bryan, I told him the other day we were talking, I was like, he's over at the house. I'm like, he met Selah when I brought her to our first meeting. Yeah, we had lunch, our families did, and she was in my carrier. You know, she was only a year old. And here she is about to turn 8. You know what I'm saying? Like,
in those
and
in like the early years, us going to Solo and saying, hey, you gotta talk a little bit louder and a little bit slower for Bryan because he's deaf and he's old. And now I can have a full conversation with that kid. And just yesterday, I'm like, what? What did he say? And it's just
He's
man,
back to being old.
it's crazy.
it went by so fast.
Went by so fast.
And it's just something I think that just those simple words resonates harder as we get older. Because it does. But hey, that's us here at Krypton Report. Thanks for listening and being part of it. If you want to email us, you know how to get a hold of us. Check out the outro, and we'll catch you next time. And remember,
Look up in the sky!
thank you for joining us today on the Krypton Report. We ask you check out our social media. We have a YouTube where we do YouTube specials. You can check out our dollar Patreon, like we talked about, where we do specials. Check the QR code here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on X and all other social media.